Religion, Society, Culture, Podcast, the inaugural season 1, A Better Society. This is episode 8, which I'm entitling Chaos and the Cataclysm. From the beginning of time to what is called the primordial time, a moral decline always precipitated the catastrophe or the cataclysm. All major cultures, all major religions, while not agreeing on everything, all agree that there was a major flood brought upon humanity by God. Whether it is Noah, Gilgamesh, Hindu, the prophet Mandu, Zoroastrianism, Mani, the prophet led people underground in Zoroastrianism. But there was always an advance warning. And over, the dialogue is between God and man is this: I've had enough, and I will hit the reset button. Moses, as we all know, intervenes. Abraham says to God in conversation, will you not spare the city if there's 10 righteous? Lot making it, but his wife not making it because she looked back, turned into a pillar of salt. Noah, man's cruelty is so much and too much for God to bear. God says, I have a plan. And he calls Noah. The Sumerian, this person is Gilgamesh. And when you consider the size of the boat that's written on Qumran tablets, those tablets say that the boat is the same size as Noah's boat. And so the point is, the world has ended before, whether it's Roman, whether it's Hindu, whether you're a Christian, pagan, or barbarian, whether you're Native American, the world has ended before. And according to sacred writings, according to lore, according to tradition that's passed down, according to the cuneiform tablets, cuneiform writings, it was always brought upon because of us. We brought the cataclysm upon ourselves. This is what was told to Plato. And Plato had a family member who heard it directly from Egypt about a civilization 12,000 years old. And this society came to ruin because of hubris. And so the consistent theme is God has had enough with the noise. He tells Noah, there's no harmony, there's just too much noise, there's too many gunshots, the sound of ambulances, riots, too many households at war with each other, too many generations of calamities and sufferings, injustice and exploitation of the poor. God says, I had enough. And he brings on the end. Look at what the scriptures teach about Israel before captivity. Northern kingdom and southern kingdom both experienced captivity. One to the Assyrians, one to the Babylonians. And we see Amos, who comes to the southern kingdom. And you can look at it almost as if Amos is bringing the paperwork from God. It says you've been measured, and not only are you short, but you exploited the system. And so therefore, there has to be an eviction. The Assyrians bring a cataclysm. The Babylonians bring a cataclysm to their community, to their world. destroyed the temple. Read Lamentations. It's the end of their world, end of their society. Decolonizing wealth could have saved the society. A decolonization of wealth, a redistribution of wealth. In Exodus, the crying of the suffering resulted in the crying of the Egyptians through calamity. I often wonder what God thinks of all the homelessness we are experiencing in every city. Tent cities become the norm. In some cities, I've been to a stone throw away from mansions, a 7-iron away from mansions. Tent cities, the poorest school system next to the richest school system. We have to look in the mirror. Are we leaving to our children a debt too high to pay in terms of morality? Are we bankrupt as it pertains to morality? So a better society, a society with a conscience, has in mind that there is a higher power and that there is an expectation that we love our brothers as we love ourselves. But we have a moral decline and pride, both working at the same time. And so whether it's Atlantis, whether it's Rome, whether it's the Sumerians, pride comes before a fall. The moral decline, the days of Noah, Sodom and Gomorrah, pride comes before a fall. God opposes the proud, gives grace to the humble. That could be a motto for a better society. And the disciples are asking Jesus, when is the end coming? And you have to ask yourself, why are they focused on the end? Because they understand that the end has come before. I mean, not only are they advocating for a new kingdom, which is Old Testament prophecy, but that prophecy said it would come at the end of days. That day, the day of the Lord, the day of the cataclysm, the day of judgment. When will the end be? Without the end, there is no beginning. In Genesis, there's a beginning that tells you. Revelation helps us understand that there is an end by fire. But Jesus says, look, here's what to look for. And he helped. Right before the great catastrophe, the scriptures say that people will be lovers of themselves. And so Jesus says to the disciples, the very curious disciples, he says, this is how it's going to take place. The end will come like birth pains, like contractions. And he says, check the contractions. Well, what other contractions? He says that there'll be war and rumors of war. There'll be natural disasters. And he says that when we begin to see these things, these are like birth pains. These are like contractions. And a doctor, they've nailed that science down. They can tell you when the baby will be born, in most cases, by the contractions. And so if we look around and we look at the natural disasters and we look at the war and rumors of war, it seems to suggest that we've been in this perpetual end of days, and that should inspire us to have a better society. The question is why? Why does God continue to hit the reset button with catastrophes and cataclysms. The flood in some cases, other cases it seemed to have been the cold, but he always warns humanity. And I think that if it is God, which I believe it is, because the sacred scriptures tell me that this is the conversation that God had with Noah, and in the cuneiform tablets, this is the same conversation that the God had with Gilgamesh, that he was starting over, and he was starting over with one family. Why? It's because of love. God wants to be in fellowship with humanity the same way God was in fellowship with humanity with Adam in the Garden of Eden, that they enjoyed the cool of the day. And every time it gets too noisy, every time it gets to be too much hatred, every time it gets to be too violent, when we can't experience God's creation here the way he wants us to experience it, he starts over. And it's because of love. And it's because of cycles that have been set in place before the foundation of the world. And it's all a mystery. I don't profess to have all the answers, but I do believe that as we talk about a better society, we have to talk about the higher power and what's expected of us in the time we have on earth. We are expected to live in harmony and to enjoy God. What is required of you, man? That you do justice, and that you love mercy, and that you walk humbly before the Lord. That's what's expected. And until we have a culture, a society that represents that, it seems as though that God periodically will allow nature to take its course. And we'll have to start over. The book of Revelations teaches us that it'll be by fire this time. And that doesn't seem to be too far-fetched the way the world is going. And it's only by grace that God has not allowed it to happen thus far. Only by grace and only by his love.